Welcome to the Magnolia Shine Podcast. Philip Prince from Philadelphia, Mississippi, Elite Academy. If you're not watching him run up and down the sidelines, he's actually a great basketball mind, and he was an even better player, arguably. And then we got Michael Chavez from the Clarion Ledger, and we're going to talk about the MAIS overalls. And Philip, I want to start with you, girls' side. You've maybe seen more basketball than the rest of the state has. What are your thoughts about the overall, just looking at the girls' side of the bracket?
Well, the first game with ERA and MRA, East Rankin and Madison Ridgeland is intriguing. I think that's two of the best teams, two of the best teams all year. It's unfortunate somebody will go home that day. Those are two of the top. And on the other side, I think Jackson Prep has played well. They're very good and have a good road. So those are three of the top teams as I look through it.
Yeah, and I guess I want to stick with you before I move to Michael. Do you think they got to redo the bracket? Because it is weird that East Rankin has to square up with MRA to start. It's like, thank you for winning your state championship, but now your overall path is arguably harder.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a tournament that is always they try to do it fair. They try to rotate. I mean, it's a hard thing to do unless you kind of did like where you had a committee that would rank them over the whole season. And then when somebody gets upset like MRA did, that's just brutal. It is unfair. I think every year somebody's not happy and every year somebody else is happy. One thing I thought about Levine is how often does someone, even in 5A, which is where Leakey is, if you win your state tournament, I wonder how often somebody then turns and wins overall because it's so difficult anyway. If you think about the matchups and how it goes, that would be an interesting stat. Just to think through those things. But if you had somebody rank them, that would be kind of interesting, like a Sweet 16. If you play all the season, as they come into the tournament, maybe re-rank them or reseed them instead of doing it by classification. But they don't ask me.
Hey, maybe they should, and I'd be a part of the committee, but I don't think the MAIS wants to hear from me either.
Yeah, they don't.
Michael, right? Michael, you picked East Rankin to repeat as overall champion before the season even started. So obviously, I know you think that they're going to probably pull it out. But would you be surprised, say, if MRA wins that game, that they don't have a path to now winning the overall and doing exactly what Mr. Prince says, which is it's so often we see a team that didn't even win their state championship win the overall in the boys and the girls side.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost an interesting fact. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think East Rankin lost 5A last year, and then they went on to win the overall. And I do believe if MRA does pull that game out, which they have a very high chance of with, players like Presley Hughes and even Miss Volleyball winner, Gatorade Player of the Year, Fallon Humphreys. And, they have a real good shot in that, bottom half of that bracket with Prep, the 1 seed, being on top, who, they played a lot this season. So I think that game could be a real big decider, especially in round 1, which you like to see those teams play. That's kind of what this tournament's about. But to see them play this early, it is a little bit unfortunate. But, I think that game is probably one of the biggest games, even out of the boys and girls bracket just for round 1 on Monday.
Philip, is there any team that maybe people aren't going to talk about or expect that maybe might make that Final Four or even championship game? We talked about East Rankin last year winning the whole thing. I mean, we knew they were good, but I don't think people saw them winning the overall last year. I mean, maybe a Central Hines, a Park Lane. Like, is there any of those teams that you see?
Yeah, I think Central Hines could definitely make a push into that Final Four or whatever. He does a great job. Gantz is a good coach. He's got 2 good guards that can really control tempo and then get buckets. And Park Lane, Park Lane snuck up on us. I mean, I think as a league fan and a diehard fan, we had one of the best teams in the state all year. And they've got 2 good players. They're a tough matchup. Their 9th grader is a really, really good player, and she's a big kid that can move. And then if you get a player which against us, a 3rd or 4th player hit 2 or 3, 4 threes. Anybody, that's a team that's very good. They played East Rankin well. I think they were up by 10 on East Rankin at the state tournament. So yeah, no doubt Park Lane is very good.
Does it feel like a Jackson Prep in the field, or you would take the field at that point?
If what happens, you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, look, Jackson Prep's the 1 seed. They're the winner of 6A. But
right.
You would say that this is a lot more wide open than, they're the 1 seed. They're gonna run through this.
Yeah. Well, I think East Rankin, to me, I think he's right. East Rankin overall, because of Liz, she's such a good player. When you got a player that can get 16 points and you really don't have to run a play for her, she's going to get offensive rebounds. And then the other side is she's so great defensively. So I think they're the number one team. And then Prep is very good because McAnally does a good job. And of course, he's got some seniors, but he does a great job of getting his best shooters shots. And so he's a tactician and he'll understand that. And they play defense and they're very long. So it's funny to me. MRA and Prep are very similar, but I think MRA got the best of them, or as far as the regular season goes. So that kind of shocked me. I was surprised Prep didn't beat them, but I don't know. Force is good. Force, his teams take on his personality. They're rugged. They're tough. I told Whit Hughes that's the all DNA team, man. They got all the guys who went to the Final Four, lead athletes. I said they're not fair, and they've got good guard play too. So, yeah, I think Prep would definitely have a great shot at making those finals.
Michael, is there any other players to watch? I mean, obviously East Rankin, Lisa, she's probably one of the premier players to watch. Is there any others that you were curious about? And then also on top of just the players, you just watched PCS, and we were talking about it beforehand that they were not viewed as a team that was going to get into this tournament necessarily. And I said, well, no, their culture says that team's going to be a force, and even without the coach's daughters on the team necessarily anymore, that's still a really solid coach team.
Mhm. Yeah, I believe PCS was a 4 seed coming into it, and then they end up runners up in the 6A tournament, and they're being led by Alice Pennebaker, who scored, I believe, 23 points out of PCS's 29, I think, or something like that they had in this 6A game yesterday, and she could shoot down a three from almost anywhere on the floor, which you don't really see a lot in high school, and she can move the ball very well, and she gave Jackson Prep a lot of issues that they had to deal with the entire game up until the fourth quarter when their kind of spark came alive a little bit. But she's one to definitely look out for, especially on that bottom side of the bracket. But you look at Park Lane Academy. They have Zoe Alford, Sydney over there with Carol Caruth as well. The Caruth gene kind of carrying over at Park Lane, and that's a team to watch out for as well. Even though they didn't necessarily win 5A, but just could be as dangerous as a 6A team. Kind of like Philip said too with Liz over there at East Rankin. She's been dominant this whole year, and definitely going to give MRA some troubles, and especially on that bottom half of that bracket. And kind of turn to Jackson Prep a little bit, and you have their forward star, Meg Barber, who kind of took over that fourth quarter game yesterday and really helped propel Jackson Prep over PCS because they were just feeding her the ball down low. And she made a really big three that extended their lead to, I think, 5 within that fourth quarter. And she's going to be another one to look out for. And along with Ann McGee, Stratinger as well. And that whole Jackson Prep, I guess, starting 5, the same exact as last year, right? That's what Coach McAnally was telling me, that, when you have the same exact group, he said it's a different team, but, when you have that same exact group, you're probably going to see success. And that's kind of what you saw from Prep yesterday. And you could obviously see it in the overall tournament coming up.
Yeah, it's funny. You call them the Jackson 5, but they are in Flowwood. Before we move over to the boys' side, and this is for you, Philip, before we move on, when you have a dominant player in girls basketball, you're going to win a lot of games. But at the same time, I've noticed this in the overall, and you made a quick point of this. If you can find your fourth or fifth player and they hit 2 threes, say, in a game, that's the difference between winning by 2 or 3 and possibly losing by 10. I mean, we're talking about runs in girls basketball. I mean, how often do you see an 8-0 run, 10-0 run? I mean, you're going to see them in these games. And if you get your fourth or fifth player to hit that 3 in the third quarter, that's the difference.
Right. Well, and a lot of these games are going to be the first one to 38. you know, and you think if somebody gets 16 and then some, you know, all you need is one person to hit a shot. A lot of times, you know, sometimes you'll roll your eyes because it's a bank shot. You know, someone to bank one in. But, you know, that's another thing about East Rankin. You know, the Jackson sisters shoot it well. And then Ainsley Miller, to me, I've watched her a lot, and she killed us. Man, she was a difference maker because you got to pick your poison. You know, you're going to let Liz get 28, or are you going to try to make somebody hit a shot? And that kid, man, she did. She did all year. And I'm like, you get mad, but she just hit big shots, and she did it again the other day. You know, she had a good mid-range shot. So, hey, you know, the other thing is good players. You know, the definition of a good player is they make other people better. And that's the one team that I think, you know, again, that's why I think they're the favorite. It's because you have to defend Liz in that regard. So, you know, Park Lane had somebody, I guess her number was number 4. Forgot her name. Let's see. Maybe it was Brewer. You called her name. She hit the threes against us. You know, you always look for that diamond in the rough, somebody to make a shot. In the MC Open arena, it's difficult. You know, it's not easy, but it can be done.
First to 38. I haven't heard that one before, but I'm going to steal that one from you. I like that. First to 38. But it's true, you know, without a shot clock, that seems to be the key number. And, you know, if you score 38 points, you know, it means you're making some shots out there. And like you said, in that gym and with good teams, the scoring is going to be a little bit less than you would see in a regular season game, of course.
Well, and you got to remember, in our league, Blake, they played each other. Like, league could play. We played Pillow 4 or 5. You play them 4 or 5 times. I mean, that's brutal. What play are you gonna run? You know, it comes down to somebody's got to make a shot or make a play.
Absolutely. All right, boys side, Jackson Academy once again the 1 seed, even as they lose the Williams brothers. So kudos to coach over there and what they're doing. If you were going to look at this bracket, who would be the team that you would expect to upset Jackson Academy? And I know Hartfield just took them to overtime, and Michael said that he thought Hartfield maybe should have won that game late. Is Hartfield just getting hot late? I mean, what is it? I mean, is it them? Is it somebody else down the bracket? Whether it be Prep, because you know Prep plays well in the overalls. I mean, they tend to. Where are we looking? And then is there anyone that's in 5A, 4A that has a shot to even contend that far?
And just in that top half of the bracket, JA has a chance of seeing Oak Forest Academy, who at a given time they were arguably the best team in MAIS this season, up until, you know, this recent loss in their 5A state title game. But you know, they have wins against, you know, Ocean Springs, Hartfield, MRA. They beat Prep twice, Bogachita, you know, these really good teams that they've been playing. And yeah, sure, they lost, you know, in the 5A tournament, but to a really good, you know, Heritage Academy team. And, you know, I do feel that pretty confident that semifinal matchup between JA and Oak Forest is probably going to happen. And I think they have a real good chance of giving JA a run for their money. But I mean, that triple overtime game they're having on Saturday, it kind of shows the resilience of this JA team and, you know, what Coach Jesse Taylor's doing over there with his guys and the returners from last year's team with Caleb Gator and Marcus Goodlow and, you know, everybody else in that whole, you know, kind of culture aspect that Jay is putting on. It's going to be real tough to beat. And, you know, they deserve that first round bye and, you know, the 1 seed. But if there is a team that, you know, could upset JA, it possibly could be a 5A team in Oak Forest. And that's just in the top half of the bracket. But, you know, bottom half, you could potentially look at, you know, Hartfield Academy again. You got, you know, Central Hines in 4A who, you know, deserves to be said, you know, along this full crowd of MAIS teams. They have Southern Miss signee Wesley, or that was his name, Wesley Lindsay. Blanked on his name for a second, but you know, he's been playing well all year, and you know, Southern Miss signee for a reason. And you know, and then you got a great round 1 matchup between Heritage Academy and Jackson Prep, another one of those 1-3, you know, seeds that happen to fall in place. So, you know, this field, kind of like you were saying about the girls, you know, it's really wide open. Even though JA has, you know, get the 1 seed and they dominated all years, you know, you say the same thing about Oak Forest and Heritage and, you know, down the list. So, I do feel that there are teams that could upset JA, but they're gonna have to give it their all for sure.
Philip, if Simpson beats Greenville Christian, which I think is going to happen, does Simpson have a shot?
Who was that next game? Simpson and who?
It would be JA.
Yeah, Simpson can. Simpson sometimes gives you trouble with his own, but man, JA shoots it well and they defend well.
That may be the problem.
I mean, if I'm putting Blake Levine money on it, I'm taking JA. But I tell you, JA just plays. They play really good. When you play really good defense and you shoot the three ball well, and you've got two guards that handle the ball, so you can't speed them up. They're not going to turn it over. They're tough out. Oak Forest played them really close last year. If you remember, Oak Forest took the air out of the ball and got it down into the last quarter. I don't remember the actual final score, but when you've got a 6'6" guy, that young man has improved. He was good last year. He is a hoss this year. The only problem with OFA though is they're not deep. So a couple of guys get in foul trouble, they're in trouble. And so that's the things that in a tournament you look at. If you get a foul trouble, you got to win 3 games. So if somebody gets in foul trouble, one of them, you lose it. Prep, I think I said in the beginning, I thought Prep was the best team because they got inside out, obviously well coached. Their scheme is fantastic. You got Ben Segrist and different people that can hit big shots. I would never bet against them in that tournament. And then Hartfield, the thing about Hartfield is I'm going to use the words of Doyle Wolverton. They can forevermore fill it up. And they've got a great point guard in Wiggy Ball who gets it to shooters. And that guy doesn't get routed. Of course, they play defense too, and they're well coached. But then you got to think, can you live by the 3, die by the 3? They can, and if they get hot and hit the threes, they can beat anybody, as they've proven.
Michael, I mean, are you feeling good about Hartfield? Because I think a lot of people did not expect them to get to where they are and to be in overtime away from being a state champion. Although they have those good players, although they can fill it up, but do they have a shot in this overall? I mean, I think they do. They're playing right at the right time.
I mean, it's kind of hard to say why they wouldn't, right? I mean, they played JA probably harder than Jackson Academy has kind of been tested throughout the whole year. And, kind of like Philip said with Wiggy Ball and Caleb Warden, who hit a game-tying 3 to send Hartfield to triple overtime with a one-legged floater off the backboard. But they've all just been playing really well on that team. And the kind of, I know I talked about the resilience that JA showed, but the kind of desire and will that Hartfield showed was, I think it proved a lot of people, about this MAIS 6A, field. And, Hartfield shouldn't be taken lightly at all, especially at that bottom half of that bracket, because you probably might not see them play another 6A or 5A team until the semifinals with Prep and Heritage Academy near that top of the bottom bracket, So Hartfield does have a really good chance to make it to the semifinals or even to make it to that final and either pressure potentially Jackson Academy or Oak Forest, whoever comes out of that top. But the way that they're playing right now, I definitely could see them making a deep run and potentially winning it. And I know it's a sports analogy, with playing hot at the right time, but they are, and they're getting it done on both sides of the ball.
Hey, Blake, I was going to say, I want to tell you this. Heritage, I didn't know how good they were until we played them. And, I thought maybe their defense is okay. I knew they could play offense. Their defense is fantastic. And, man, I'm telling you, they beat Oak Forest, and I would have said Oak Forest. I would have bet Blake Levine money on Oak Forest. And, man, they've got great shooters. They got a good point guard. He can score and control the game. And, man, they're very, very good, obviously. And so I think they're as good as anyone. I mean, I know we've talked about them, but it's crazy. They win the 5A, and it's almost like they're like we're thinking 5 or 6 option, but I don't think so. I think they're really, really good.
All right, before I let you guys go, because we're running out of time, Philip, you want to say anything about refereeing, or do you want to keep that?
No, I'm not saying that. You can't put me on that. I don't.
No, don't do it. Don't do it if you don't want to do it.
No, I mean, there's no. I mean, no. That was as a fan. I was watching the game as a fan.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know how it is. Hey, look, I'll say this about refereeing. I would be a terrible referee. I would be horrendous. I would get beaten up. So it's a thankless job. Everybody's trying. But, I don't know.
It's one of those jobs, kind of like offensive lineman or kicker. No one shows you until you mess up.
Yeah.
Right?
My thing is this.
You never get a round of applause for a good foul call, I guess.
Hey,
you never go, oh, great call, great call.
No, but to me, I think you could find out who are the top. Somebody got to have some kind of rating. Who's the best, and they would be there. I don't know how you do that because I guess no fan likes a referee. So there's got to be somebody smarter than me that can grade a guy, and say or gal, and say that's a good referee. And those who should be the ones that referee the best games and the biggest games because they're important.
You got to give the high school ones a lot of credit.
The MHSA, they do have a ranking system within the refs.
Yeah, you should. It's not rocket science. When you see somebody walk in the gym and you groan, that's bad.
You got to give the high school refs a lot of credit, though. There was at the J.A. Hartfield game last night. They were getting a lot of slack from a lot of fans on both sides. But that's just with high school. Everyone's so close together, and all these professional college refs. They're not near the court.
It's their full-time job. These guys got to go back to their cubicle on Monday.
Oh yeah,
exactly.
For the most part, they do a great job. We're people. They're people, and 90% of the time, like we always say, you got to make a free throw or a layup. Don't worry about the referees. Really, honestly.
Absolutely. Hey, thank you guys for joining me today.
Yeah,
thanks for having me, Blake.